association rule mining. Association is a way by which you talk about typically in retail scenarios. Like most common example which people have been talking about in data mining is beer and diapers frequently appear together in a shopping basket. This is a very interesting observation when people started analyzing supermarket transactions, and the idea there is either we are taking an approach to understanding why there is correlation between items being put in the shopping basket together, and that kind of correlation is what is known as association rules. There are several other scenarios in business contexts. For example, if you also carry common cold, or if you see that if you have a disease of one kind, along with that is some more diseases which are very commonly occurring together. Or in case of fraud detection by investigative wing, they look at which telephone calls are made together by criminals so that you can identify more people who are associated together. Or in the context of drug analysis, we find out which DNA are sensitive to a specific new drug. So there are several use cases of association rule mining. It's basically a hidden pattern in the data which is unsupervised. And what we try to do here is at a set of items which are typically user wants to buy, and then a typical transaction is, you can say, like one shopping cart, which is a subset of the set of items which a person buys at one time. And a transaction is basically a set of transactions, means it could be a series of purchases done over different days by same customer, or the same customer comes multiple times to the shop. Collection of all the transactions becomes your transaction database. So what we need to identify in an association rule is an implication of the form saying that one subset of items always implies another subset of items. That is, X implies Y, where both X and Y are basically item sets. They're called item sets actually, and both mutually exclusive. So if you say I buy milk and bread, then I always end up buying jam. So milk, bread are one item set, jam is another item set. If you see, they're mutually exclusive, but the rule says that if whenever I buy milk and bread, I also happen to buy jam. So a K item set is basically an item set with K items. So it is very important for us to understand that the final rule can not necessarily depend upon only the singleton conclusion. Y, which is the conclusion, can be multiple items. It need not be one item. So when we talk about an association rule, it is possible that I may have a scenario where I say that if I buy milk and bread, I also buy cereal and jam. So the Y, which is on the right hand side of the implication, is not necessarily only a singleton item, but could be an item set itself. So when we talk about how do you measure success of having discovered an association rule, there are two primary measures we talk about. So if you see, one of the important measure which is known as support. Support is basically the percentage of transactions a set of transactions which contain the entire set of X union Y. So it's basically the subset of the large number of transactions you may be doing which have both X and Y together. Then the confidence is basically percentage of transactions which contain X. How much percentage of that also contain Y? So it's basically, you can say support is about how many of the transactions contain both left and right hand side. Confidence is about among the left hand side transactions, how many also have the right hand side transactions. So if X occurs, Y also occurs in a certain percent to the transactions which have X, that shows the confidence. Whereas X and Y together occurring among the whole set of transactions, that is your support. So let's look at the example here. It's very simple to understand. We're talking about a set of transactions like T1 is bread, jelly, peanut butter. Transaction 2 is bread and peanut butter. Transaction 3 is bread, milk and peanut butter. T4 is beer and bread. T5 is beer and milk. Let's look at the association rule. If I say bread implies peanut butter, it surely from a support perspective, it is about understanding the number of transactions which are both bread and butter. That is basically, you can say there are 3 transactions out of the total 5, so it becomes 60%. In some cases, if you look at beer and bread are together occurring only in 1 transaction out of 5. So support becomes 20%. Whereas if you look at the confidence in beer implies bread, and if you look at the beer itself, it occurs in 2 transactions out of 5. So 2 out of 5 is basically giving you a support, but when you look at out of the 2, there's only 1 which contains beer and bread. So the confidence becomes 50%. What do you mean by the percentage of support and confidence? So basically when you say support, it basically says that how important is the association rule you've discovered. That governed by transactions which contain both left and right hand side. Whereas confidence is saying that how confident are you about taking a set of transactions on the left side and see how many of them contain the right hand side. Very simple concept to understand.